Hello, 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 hello. Very, very, very excited to be with you live and in real time today to explore our very first movies with a message session. This was a really interesting experience coming on today because there's so much that's changed in the world since we made this plan. And I feel really, really excited that this is what we planned, both because I think it will be a welcome relief, it will be insightful, and it is actually incredibly relevant to what's happening right now. So if you're coming on and you have seen Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, fantastic. You're going to recognize many of the things that I talk about. We're going to use that to go deeper. If you haven't seen it, you actually probably are still familiar with the iconic scene that we're going to look at today. But even if you're like, I hate sci-fi, I hate fantasy, this is not my world, I invite you to really get curious and receptive, because the teaching of this movie, of this scene, of this message is relevant for all of us all the time. And that message is the power of decision. In my 6-step framework that I teach about how to go from teaching high school math to building a 7-figure business or any other exponential, phenomenal change in your life, step 4 is making a decision. And it's an interesting one because people are making decisions all the time, every day. It's not really... it's not something that we generally talk about or think about. There was never a class that I took anyway on how to make a decision. But actually, it's like quite rich. The process of making a decision, the experience of going deeper into the ease, efficiency, and clarity of your decision-making process. So it's not trivial. And when I teach this, oftentimes what we look at is where have you said that you were going to make a decision? Where have you thought that you were making a decision, but actually your life tells you you haven't? Actually, your results tell you you haven't, right? You've made a decision to make more money, but your bank account looks the same. That means there's some part of that decision that you haven't fully claimed. What is that? And so my additional lens, my gratitude as we come in today is that here we are in a time of looking at our systemic racial oppression in the United States, in the West in general, in the world, I think, but for sure in the US. And it's highlighting on a very large scale, as well as on a very personal scale, where we've thought we made decisions, but we clearly haven't. Where we've thought that we've said, this is enough, we're going to change this, but the system hasn't changed, which means that there's some part of the decision that hasn't actually come into full reality. Again, individually is where I'm going to focus, because that's where we have the most power, is in our individual worlds, in our own bodies. We get to choose whether we make decisions or not, whether we make those decisions consciously or not, what those decisions are. I mean, it's all on us. And when we find the power in our own decision-making process, it changes how we can support the decision-making of others. It supports how we can change the decision-making on a local community scale, on a global community scale. And my proposition to you is that if you don't understand how that happens, how you in your own life make one decision and actually mean it, actually make it real, then you can't really engage in the conversation about changing our society, because you don't yet understand the mechanism of how it's working. Thanks, Michelle. I'm so happy to have you here. So we're going to study the mechanism today. We're going to look at you and your life, and then we'll extend and extrapolate. And I invite you to go deep, lean in with me. Let the fun and playfulness of the context of this session give you the space to actually look more deeply than maybe you've ever looked before at what you're tolerating, at your indecision, at your lack of clarity. With total love and compassion, there's no wrong here. It's not helpful to make it wrong. It actually gets in the way. Guilt and shame, making things wrong, interrupt progress. I'm not saying that you don't hold people responsible, okay? There's consequences to all our actions. But as we go deeper here, I invite you to let yourself just look at the mirror. Just look at the mirror and welcome with open eyes whatever it is that you see, because that is what will position you to be able to change. Okay, without further ado, let's introduce Star Wars. So this is a scene from the middle of the second movie released in 1980. So any Star Wars nerds are going to know this is Empire Strikes Back. It's episode 5, but it was released second because, confusing. In this movie, Luke Skywalker, who is the central hero, he's the one on the hero's journey. In movie number 1, he was almost annoying the whole time. In fact, all the characters were kind of annoying the whole time. He's very young and immature. In this second movie, he's slightly less annoying, but still pretty annoying. But he's growing. He's said yes to his path. He's in the process of learning these superpowers of working with the Force. You'll see that as we start the scene. And I feel you, Erica. Yeah, I got you. Calling all my Star Wars nerds. Let's do it. This is my favorite of all the Star Wars films. I think this is the one that's most rich. It's the most potent, penetrating. I think a lot of people feel that way. It's very powerful. And part of the reason is because we're witnessing Luke find his mentor, Yoda. Find his mentor and begin to go deeper into that relationship, to understand the Force, to understand his power, to understand what's possible for him, to be in a relationship that challenges him in service of his potential, as opposed to, in his sort of previous life, without going into the whole story, he was challenged by his caretakers in the first movie, but in service of their goals and objectives, in service of their potential. They weren't really interested in Luke's potential. So just like planting some seeds, right? Like, how much in your life are you listening to the voices of people who are challenging you? Whose voices are you listening to? Which challenges are you taking? Are you taking the challenges that lead you in the direction of growth, or are you taking the challenges that lead you in the direction of what someone else wants? It's a lot of the conversation that's happening right now, right? Is like, whose dictates are you following? In order to go study with Yoda, Luke has to leave everyone that he knows and everything that he knows behind. So that's also already happened. So anyway, he's a little more mature. He's getting there. And we're just going to look at one scene, but we're going to really go deep into it and analyze every single piece of this scene to really mine it for our own growth. Let me just think if there's anything else I need to say about this scene. The last thing I'll say is that we're watching Luke come of age. He's had an awakening, and now it's time for him to integrate. And this is my proposition for each of you. This is a constant, right? Like, anyone that's listening to this probably is technically an adult, so it's not that you're coming of age in that way, but there's an inner awakening that's happening. Always. that you're learning to integrate. And so this scene is relevant for you always. Anytime you have a new awakening, this scene is relevant. And even beyond that, that at this time, we're seeing the massive, massive awakening of our society, of our culture. And the question is, what are we going to do with that awakening? So let's dive in. Shri, can you bring up the scene? All right. So, can you hear that? No. Okay. Let me stop. We got a little tech issue. Let's go back and fix it. All right. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and share it again, but do it right this time. All right. And I'll take you back a little bit. All right. So here we are watching Luke be a badass. He's holding Yoda on his feet and lifting rocks with his mind. And R2-D2, who's his robot companion, is excited because the ship that they flew in on is sinking. Right there, we can just pause there for a minute to just note. This is the stage that Luke is in, right? He's like accessing his powers, lifting rocks with his mind, doing one-armed handstands with someone balancing on top. But one sound comes into his mind, and what happens? He gets nervous, he gets distracted, and suddenly he's not able to maintain this anymore. This is normal, right? This is what we are all working on. This is the work of integration. Right here, he's doing it. This is him seeing, oh, I lose my attention. Right now he needs his teacher to say, Luke, concentrate. You're getting distracted. So that's like, this is a framework from which this scene emerges, right? This is where Luke is. This is his developmental stage. I'm turning up the volume here. Let's see if that helps. All right. Yoda's like, man, why'd you drop me?
No. We'll never get it out now.
This is the default setting. We look at our environment, we look at our circumstances, and our program is, oh no. When contrast arises, when something happens that we are not 100% enthusiastic about, our immediate response is no. Which means we cut ourselves off from the force, from God, from source, from possibility. We immediately, it's like we put blinders on. We can only see the negative outcome that we believe is right in front of us. And thank goodness for Yoda, he calls him on it.
So certain are you? Always with you, what cannot be done. Do you nothing that I say?
Master, moving stones around is one thing. This is totally different.
No, no different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
So, Yoda is the power of, the like iconic. Yeah, let me turn on the subtitles. Give me 1 second. That'll help you guys see. Okay. English. Okay. I'm just going to go back and give you the blow by blow. So let's just pausing here. Like Yoda's the one that just fell and like crash landed. He's groaning a little bit because he's over 800 years old, but he's not complaining. He hasn't said anything yet. He's like, oh, okay, what's next? You can feel his openness. R2D2 is like making noise, but there's no meaning yet in what R2D2 is saying either.
No. We'll never get it out now.
Certain are you?
The meaning comes from Luke, and Yoda calls it immediately. So certain. That's the restriction. When you know this is wrong, this is a problem, this won't work, I'll never be able to do it, this will never happen, I'm never going to get what I want. Well, then that's your creative energy, that's your power, that's what you're directing the energy that you have towards your certainty. So this is an example of an unconscious decision. Luke has made an unconscious decision that this shit is wrong and bad, and he's a little fucked. And Yoda is doing his brilliant job to open that up a little bit. Let's look at this. Really?
No. We'll never get it out now.
So certain are you? Always with you, what cannot be done. Do you nothing that I say?
Master, moving stones around is one thing. This is totally different.
No, no different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
I think this part is really important because this is also true for all of us. One of the pieces of this story is that Luke comes to the training late. He's grown when he comes, and Yoda is a little fussy about that in the beginning. He's like, he's too old. He's got too many patterns already. And this is what Yoda knew would happen, right? Because he has to not just learn, but to unlearn so that he can learn something new. Luke's certainty comes from his experience with a certain culture, a certain mindset. And it is a completely different mindset, a completely different culture, a completely different way of looking at the world than what his Jedi training is teaching him. So I think this is really important to name, because when we're talking about culture change, when we're talking, and again, in your own life or in the world, we're talking about ending oppression or changing class or making $1 million. It doesn't matter. These are huge changes. In order to make these changes, you have to unlearn something that you've learned, something that you're probably really certain about. You have to be willing to let that go. Dump that out of your mind and then bring in a new teaching principle. So you've seen Luke in his unconscious decision making, like this is bad, we're screwed. And now you're about to see him in an indecision. What he's about to do is not an example of decision, it's indecision.
This is totally different.
No, no different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try.
So, right, this is probably the most famous quote from all 9 Star Wars movies and all the TV shows and books and whatever. And my proposal is that actually most people haven't really thought about it that much, don't really understand what it looks like in their own life. So I invite you right now to look at where in your life right now are you trying? Trying is indecision. Trying is when you're like, I'm going to reach for this, but I'm not all in. Trying is when you are conceiving of it as impossible or really hard, like Luke saving his ship. And you're going to take action anyway, but it's just to prove that you're right about it being so fucking hard. Trying is taking action to prove that you're right, that you can't have what you want. So I call it indecision. In fact, you could say that Luke's mindset is still decided. He's still decided that this is impossible, but he's willing to take action. So he's sort of got a push-pull going on. There's like a part of him that's curious enough, like maybe it's possible. Let me see. But he's still got this other really strong energy pulling him back. And you're about to see the results of that. I think with this, well, you never know. I may just keep interrupting it over and over and over again. But I like you guys getting the arc of the thing. So you're doing great. Let me know if anything else is coming up. If you have questions, things are lighting you up. I want to hear about it.
Try.
No. Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
I can't. It's too big.
Size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you?
So you can see, this is one of those, when I talk at the beginning about how you know what the decision is that you've made, like if you were to go in and interview Luke in this moment, I think that he would tell you like, no, I decided to do it. That's why I stuck my hand out in the air and closed my eyes and did the mind work to lift the ship with my mind out of the lake. He thinks he's decided. But what did he say right before it? It's too big. It's one thing to lift rocks. It's another thing to lift the ship. Yoda's like, nah, man, there's the same thing. It's just different in your mind. Like, you can do this. Luke's response, okay, I'll try. Not deciding. Not deciding to change. Not deciding to change. Closes his eyes, does the thing, sits down. What's the first thing he says? It's too big. That's how you know he didn't decide to change. It doesn't matter that he went out there and waved his hand. It doesn't matter that he tried to do the magic. It doesn't matter that he tried. It actually made things harder because now he's reinforced for himself that it can't be done. He didn't change his decision. He didn't make a decision to change. I'm playing with this language. There's like, as I'm talking, I'm like, oh. Step 4 in my framework is making the decision to change. When we're talking about learning something new that requires that we unlearn something old, we're talking about a decision to change. When we talk about ending systemic oppression, we're talking about making a decision to change. Change is uncomfortable. Change requires that we give up this old teaching, which provides us with certainty. I mean, look, Luke is more certain now than ever before that it can't be done. We like our certainty. We like our certainty even if we don't like what we're certain about. And you cannot make the decision to change halfway. That's the teaching of do or do not. There is no try. There isn't a halfway mark. There's no gray area here. You're either changing or you're not changing. So this whole, we're going to watch a little bit more, but this whole teaching will set you up to make much clearer decisions in the future. But even more powerfully, I think, is the mirror reflection to help you understand that when things are not the way you want them to be, particularly if it's a persistent thing, if it's a toleration, if it's something that's been coming up for you for a while, like not having enough money or not having the team that you want or the relationship that you want or the world that you want. If you can be kind and curious and look in the mirror and articulate, identify, go hunting for the part of you that is Luke in this scene, that has already decided it's not possible, that's already decided it's not for you, that's already chosen the certainty of your past, rather than risk opening up to the possibility of what you actually want to experience and taking action from there. So let's keep watching because Yoda has more to teach us. Just feel again, feel that certainty that he has as he fails. Tech support. All right, cool. Okay, here we go. He looks bummed, but it's because he wasn't all in.
I can't. It's too big.
Size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you? And where you should not. For my ally is the Force. And a powerful ally it is. Life creates it. Makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
You want the impossible.
How many of you have done that? How many of you have had, I mean, I'm literally tearing up as I listen to Yoda because it's like, yeah, we can't, we are not the source of this energy, of this power. Making the decision to change doesn't mean making the decision to carry the burden of the world on your shoulders. It means stepping into faith. It means being vulnerable enough to choose collaboration. It means being willing to open your eyes, not put a blindfold on, open your eyes and welcome the power that can move through you. Each one of us individually, we're pretty tiny. But the power that we are able to channel unlimited. So I'm just looking at your comments. This is great. And I think that what's coming up for me is the emotion that's coming up is in the context of working to transform our world around systemic racial oppression. And the misconception that so many of us have had around, like, what is enough? What's enough? How do we do enough? Shri and I will be streaming live tonight to talk more about that explicitly. But what is enough? Enough is you making the decision and connecting with the infinite resources that supply you. And that's not just meditating in a cave, as you're about to see, but it starts there. It starts with the awareness that there is more than just these material bodies, more than just this crude matter, more than just this skin color, more than just this moment in time. It doesn't diminish it. It's just not our most powerful resource. So we're going to watch it again, that little piece. And I want you to really tap into, as you watch it, think about just one thing in your life that you know you want to change. And listen to Yoda talk to you about what that change requires, how to leverage it. It's not coming from you didn't do right, do it better. It's not coming from you're not good enough, you should believe more. It's none of that. It's coming from feel his energetic transmission.
And where you should not. For my ally is the Force. And a powerful ally it is.
The music changes and everything.
Life creates it. Makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us. And binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
You want the impossible.
What's Yoda doing? Feeling the Force, connecting with the Force. And there's Luke with his certainty that it's impossible. Yoda's just chilling, and Luke's like, what? It's right in front of him, and he doesn't believe it. He's touching it.
I don't believe it.
That is That's why you fail.
All right. So, Shri, I think you can take the screen off. Ooh, I just saw we lost the stream, suspended for policy violations. Ooh, okay, good to know. So we'll keep going on the platforms that we've got. Just to recap, so certain are you. Always with you, it cannot be done. We all have that part. We all have that part of us who's so certain we can't have what we want, so certain we can't change, so certain the world can't change, so certain we can't have the pleasure we want, the wealth that we want, the business that we want. Those little voices, sometimes big voices, are in all of us. That's why Star Wars is such a universally successful film, because this is a human story. Robots and aliens and all. Look for that part of you. Get to know that part of you. What's the part of you that's certain you can't change? Where are you comparing based on size? That's like, we didn't talk about that much as we were analyzing the film, but it's a useful place to go to. Like, there's an aspect of this that if you look at, you could believe it for this much, but just not this much, right? Like, you could bring in $5 today, but not 5,000 or 50,000 or 5 million. Like, where are you not yet leveraging the full power of your mind to get free? Oh, I can have a healthy relationship with my local community around these topics of race and diversity, but not the world, right? Like, where just notice where you compare based on size in a way that doesn't actually serve your vision. You have to unlearn what you've learned. What do you need to unlearn? What story, what teaching, what principle do you need to renounce in order to bring in the thing that you actually want? Making the decision to change is actually making the decision to give that thing up systematically. I will give up this old teaching. And again, that I can't have what I want, or that I don't have to worry about the suffering of others, or that there's nothing I can do about the suffering of others. Or the old teaching I'm just thinking about in my life, that I'm somehow entitled to more because of the color of my skin. Right? There's a lot. We can talk about this for days. There's so many programs. Which programs do you need to unlearn? What does it look like to renounce them? What does it look like to give them up? What actions do come out of you when you make that choice? And the invitation to turn up the contrast, to clear out the middle ground. There is no try. There is no gray. You're either in or you're out. And I mean, this is such a funny, small story, but this is a personal story about why this theme of decision has been coming up so strongly for us recently, which is about getting a pump for my diabetes. I'm diabetic. And I have one, I'm like part robot here, but I still take injections. And I have been resisting. I don't want to have these things attached to my body. So there's a pump and I don't want it. And I haven't wanted it for years. And I'm like looking at getting it. Had a conversation with my doctor about it, made the decision, I'm going to do this. Got connected to the guy about the paperwork to get the insurance approval, yada, yada, yada. 10 days went by and I didn't do it. Thought I'd made the decision, said I'd made the decision, but my actions showed I hadn't made the decision. I was still in the resistance. And what's powerful about this, again, I think Yoda's teaching is like, this is the truest thing. He's not saying just do it. He's saying do it or don't do it. Cut out the middle ground. Do or do not. There is no try. So as soon as I saw that, I'm in toleration. I got this push-pull. I'm saying I'm going to do it, but I'm not doing it. So I'm out of alignment with myself. What do I want to do with that? What I want to do with that is get into alignment and either say, you know what? I don't want the pump. I said I did, but I don't want to. Or go fill out the fucking paperwork. Either one is fine. Which one do I want to do? Well, in fact, I had made the decision intellectually. I'm going to try the pump. You guys maybe will hear about it. So I filled out the paperwork that day. And that's the piece that I teach my clients. I mean, this is the part that's like on a very granular level, shows up day in, day out. There's all kinds of opportunities to, when you realize, okay, this doesn't feel good. This isn't working for me. This isn't quite what I want. What is the thing I want? What do I want instead? Whatever it is, you take action on it, or it's not real. Take action on it immediately and make it real. And again, in your bank account, in the bedroom, in your like organization of your closet, in your relationship with people of color or white people, people that are different from you, your relationship to other people suffering, however, whatever it is, get excited to do or do not. Remember that your ally is the force. And remember that scene. Remember the music, the sweetness that comes in. The force is that sweetness, that nectar. It's not like, it feels good, okay? That's why so many of the spiritual teachings are like, go in the direction that feels good, not as an avoidance tactic. Not because you're avoiding the pain and fear, but actually leaning into the pain and fear, whatever the suffering, whatever, all that stuff you're leaning into. And from there, you're choosing, where is the most support? Where is the most energetic resourcefulness? Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. Luminous beings are we. What does it look like to experience that? What does it look like to see other people through that lens? I don't think it means that we say, I don't see race. We fucking see it. We all see it. It's very obvious. We're just like Luke. It's right in front of us. We're touching it, feeling it. That's what we hold on to, is what is right in front of us. We do see it. It's a different sight to connect with that ally, that energetic flow. Rob, if you want to ask that question again, I'm interested. I don't understand the question that you're asking. And then just it's the loop. The scene is the loop. So at the very end, Luke says, "You want the impossible." He's still fighting. He's still fighting to be right, that it's not possible. Where are you doing that? Where are you fighting to be right? That you can't have what you want. Because it is your belief, your commitment to believing that you can, that opens up the floodgates to change. So look at what you're tolerating in your life. Look at where you thought you decided, but you haven't. Look at where you have said you're going to change, but the result tells you you haven't. Be kind. Be curious as you look. You can tell you've made a decision by what's happening on the outside. And I know I've asked you a ton of questions just now, but the final questions that I invite you to explore are what is your ship? What's the ship that you think is impossible to move, but that actually represents the true potential of everything that you long for? Today, just today. And where are you trying instead of deciding? Those are the two questions that I leave for you. What an honor to be with you all at this time, in this way. I love you. I see your luminosity. I see your light. And I invite you to turn up the dimmer switch. Turn up the contrast. Let yourself want what you want, have what you want, choose what you want, create what you want. And do whatever is necessary on the inside in order to line up with it. And if there's anything I can do, let me know. Y'all are amazing. Thanks so much for being here. Any questions that you have, post them in the comments. Any questions that you want to ask, join me on the Hour of Insight on Thursdays at 12 Pacific. And if there's anything else that doesn't fall into those categories, just email my team, info@jessiejohnsoncoaching.com. We'll get you anything that we can. So much love. May the force be with you.